Hey, you, look at me, then look behind me, then look at me again, then look behind again. What do you see? You're seeing some incredible detailed effects that only movies can have them. But what if I'm gonna show you a way that you can have them as well in the palm of your Unreal? Wait, no. In the palm of your hand. And you can bring them into Unreal and create them with a software that is easy to use and pretty much readily available for you to start using it straight away. You don't need an incredibly expensive license or anything like that, and it comes packed with all the effects that you're seeing behind me, plus much more that you can create for yourself using these basic templates or new templates. But yeah, let me just give you a short rundown of what Embergen is, how to export some of these effects, and how to use them in Unreal Engine 5. So Embergen has existed for quite a while now, and it just came to version 1.1, or sorry, 1.0. It got released a couple of days ago. There was a live stream going through all the details of it and so on, and it was very, explicit. So I would definitely recommend you watch that video from them, and then you can see. The license on this is something like $19 a month or something like that. But if you actually pay 18 consecutive months, then you will own the software, like entirely. So that's pretty cool for an end user. But yeah, for £19 a month, you can use this software. You can also try the free trial and see if it's worth it to you. I would say it is if you're somebody that creates a lot of cinematics, somebody that wants to have high fidelity effects in their videos. Definitely something to look into, especially if you don't want to go and learn Houdini and to pretty much pay the steep price on that. But you can then export effects such as the one that you're seeing behind me into software like Unreal Engine or Blender or CAD or 3ds Max or whatever, and then use it in there as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to export one of these already made effects, bring them into Unreal Engine very quickly, and then pretty much set it up and use them straight away. It's very easy, and just a few quick steps and then you're able to go. And then also on top of that, basically you're getting a method of exporting a sequence. I've already showed you in my previous video, so watch that if you want to see how to how to import VDBs into Unreal Engine as static VDBs, and what are the best settings to get the best looking ones. But this one is specifically designed for animated sequences. Now, the one that you're currently seeing behind me, it's one that's got GPU particles and volumetrics. So if you want to export the GPU particles, you have to go through a more more advanced approach where you have to export the GPU particles as Alembic. But that's a different topic for another video. We're just focused on volumes and how to get them to be colored in Unreal Engine to look pretty much as as close as possible to what they look like in Embergen, which I think is very important. A lot of people don't really get how to do that. And also, what does it mean to actually play back the animation? How does that look like? Does that work well? And all of that will be explained to you very, very quickly. Just be mindful that these files are massive when you export them. So this one particularly, if I do a loop of maybe 500 frames, that could be anywhere between 10 to 15 gigabytes. So you do need the hardware capacity to be able to do it. But other than that, performance-wise, yes, they're very intensive, but they look very good. They're film-like quality effects. Right, so we'll start our journey within the Embergen software. So when you open it, this is the first screen that you're going to see. And what you want to do is press the presets button so you can have a look at some of these presets. You can start building your effects from here. But more importantly, these are good starting points for you to be able to learn as well of how these effects were done. So let's just look at a more simpler, effect, like maybe this fire here. We can see the sort of the node structure that creates this, and I would definitely suggest that you study these before moving on. But more importantly, we want to get an effect exported out of Embergen and just use it in Unreal Engine because that's, as I said, that's why we're here, to learn how to get effects like this into an engine and use them. So when you look over here, you got the volume processing, and it's got an option called VDB. Now that's exactly what you need, because when you click over here, you've got a, when you drag out, you've got the export VDB. And once you do that, it gives you the option to pretty much set the directory when you want to save this. So let's just say I'm going to put this into my downloads, and I've got some testing in here that I'm doing, and I'm just going to create a new folder, Embergen tutorial, like that, and I'm going to basically save it in here. I can select the folder, and I do have a file name, but you see it's already saves with the syntax of a project, so that's fine for me. We should be okay with that. And then it's asking us how many frames we want to export, what is the first frame, if we want to skip any of the frames. So if you do this, you save up on resource, on space, but it does jump through the frame, so it will look a bit bad. Now, in terms of what we're exporting, we need to definitely export density pretty much always, so you can actually get a volume of this. And then export flames if you want to tell the engine where we're gonna have, hot fuel or combustion or whatever, and where, or whether or not it's smoke or anything like that. So that's what you want to do. I mean, these are the two primary things that you want to export, which is density and flames. You can also do like velocity, fuel, and temperature, but those are for other applications. So the temperature, for example, can help if you want to basically affect the black body with the temperature, but we're not going to do that. I'll show you exactly what we're going to do with the density and flames. Just bear in mind, those are the two most important things that you want to export. Now, if we press export, it will do this, but we don't need only 64 frames, we need more frames. And as you can see, this effect is actually looping. If we click the simulation over here, we can have a look what it says. The simulation is looping, and the loop bounds are set between 160 to 415 frames. Now, you can change that to something else if you want, but for this, our intended purposes, this is fine. This is just gonna loop on itself forever. You can see that you've got a warning in here saying that you basically cannot use this if you're upscaling, if you're using GPU rendering particles, or if you have shape particles. So if you have this, and if you have those enabled, you won't be able to loop. But other than that, you can use this. So with that in mind, we can just press over onto the export VDB. We can press the export button, which will then start taking every frame that we've added. But because we're saying, number of frames 64, that's not going to be right. So we've got to calculate. So if we took, if we got 400, 160 to 400 frames. So, if you do that, basically you're left, sorry, if you export that amount, you're basically left with 240 frames. So you want to export 240 frames, and you want to tell it, well, my first frame needs to be 160. And now you can see, oh, sorry, it wasn't 400, it's actually a bit more. So we've got to sort of have a look at where that is. Unfortunately, it doesn't have an option to just sort of do it, but I believe you can just pretty much drag this. And yeah, I think that's now gonna be exactly the same. So we're exporting for 256 frames, and the duration of this is 256, which is fine. That's exactly what we want. So when we press the export button, this will just take this entire effect out, and then we can import it in Unreal Engine and use it. And now we're pressing the export button, which is export now. You can see it's going very fast through this. It really all depends on how large the density and everything else is. I mean, actually, the export amount of your VDB is generally all about how many voxels you actually have within this. This is voxel-based, voxel-based export. That's what VDB stands for, a voxel database. So now that's exported, we can actually check how many voxels we have in the simulation tab, where we've got the simulation size. It says in here that there's 14.4 million voxels in this, and the bigger these bounds are, the more that could be. It really depends on how much your simulation extends, or how much density and all that stuff you've set up in here. Now, if we have a look into the, if I bring up the export folder, where we've saved the VDB, let me just find it. So this one here is this fire loop. You can see if I click properties, This is 743 megabytes, so that's pretty good for this effect. So the fire, not big at all, but in a massive explosion, it could be 10 gigabytes really of information. So we have the files, and we can just sort these by name. So we have the first one, 0 over here, that's frame 0. And now we can hop into Unreal Engine and start importing all of our, our stuff in there. Also, if you're interested in very high quality VDBs that are generated using Houdini, and you want to just use a plug and play kind of option, and you don't want to go through the hassle of software or anything like that, and you want to be able to use it in any software, then have a look on PixelLab, the link is in the description, where they offer a variety of VDBs, nebulas, smoke, fire, explosion. They're really beautiful. Have a look at those. I believe they also offer a free demo if you would like to try. And yeah, if you're interested, just have a look in the link in the description below. Okay, now I'm in Unreal Engine, and I have a very, very basic scene in here, and I do actually have some VDBs imported. I actually got this magic explosion, which is a looping explosion, so I'm going to use this as an example to start off with. Now, some people, obviously, let me just point out that importing this is shown in my last video. For if you want to go through the import process, and also the plugin that you will need in order to be able to run this, which is a free plugin. But we're going to import the next effect anyway. Right now, let's just use this as an example for you to see before we import the one that we've, the effect that we exported earlier from Embergen. But with this magic explosion, some people may be tempted to just drag and drop it, which is fine. That also works, but it also loads up the most basic material shader for our VDB. What we want to do instead is go up here, type in VDB, and this will become available only if you have the plugin installed. And you can select VDB Principal Actor and drop that in the scene. Let's also make it a bit bigger. I'll do a size of 10, like that. And then we have in here density, temperature, and color. We've exported density and flames, and I know you'll actually be thinking, well, why didn't we export the temperature? Trust me, you want to export the flames, not the temperature, for this to look nice. So we're going to drop the density in here, and we're also going to drop the flames in here as well. Now we have some other parameters that we need to change, but before we get there, have a look here where it says playback, autoplay, looping, and so on. This actually runs the moment you press start, but we can also add this into a sequence to play it there without having to play the level. But if you actually go into the offset, you can actually see the effect as you move on the offset in here, and you also have a playback speed that you can change. So this entire effect will last for 36 seconds, and that's unchangeable because that's what we exported out of Embergen. So with that in mind, let's bring our sequence over here. I'm going to drop this VDB. I'm also going to press the track button, and I'm going to select VDB sequence. And this is how long that track is. You can also right click it and go to properties and then make it run faster. So actually I'm probably going to put the play rate like twice the speed, so it moves twice as fast, so we can see it a bit better. So I have my sequence like that, and I also have looping enabled, so this button over here, which means that this sequence will loop if I press play. So let's have a look. You can now see the VDB in there in action, and it doesn't look very good. So what do we do to improve it? Now, because we added the flames and the density over in here, this is already producing some coloring, but it's not exactly ideal. As you can see, when the sequence ends, it will start again, and then these explosions will play again. So let's now play around with the settings. The first thing, you want to decrease the step size to 1 for this to look better. And this is really up to you, but I would say step size 1 is pretty good and runs well. You can also turn on trilinear interpolation if you want an even better looking effect. You can already see there is an improvement there with the trilinear interpolation, but there's more that we can do. The next thing we want to do, let's bump the density to 100, and already you're seeing a massive change. And also the directional light, by the way, does actually change how this effect plays out. So if we change the lighting conditions, the VDB also gets changed as well. So let's put the lighting back to what it was. Now we leave the density at 100. We'll leave the albedo at 0.8. Nothing with the ambient and anisotropic, and nothing with the emission strength. But instead it's the black body that we're interested in. So in here we can leave the physically based black body, which is what we have right now, and we can play with the intensity of this, so you can now see that it's using the flames information to produce flame, and we can actually play around with a tint. So for example, you know, go with like a blue tint, but you're not really seeing that change, and that's because you need to also play around with the color up here, which will generally just affect the color of the smoke rather than the color of the actual black body, which is not, you know, we can probably try, you see, even doing it at 100, we're still not getting that. And you know, if you change the colors, you'll get various degrees of sort of effect on this. It's not exactly ideal generally, and that's because generally what I do is, instead of using a physically based, I create a curve. So you can also, you know, play around with the temperature multiplier if you'd like, but again, if you untick this, you can now actually set the black body curve atlas and black body curve with the temperature multiplier, which is definitely going to give you a better result on this effect. So I'm going to show you now how to create the curve in the curve atlas. So let's quickly do that. So working with the curve atlas is quite easy. Just right click over here, go to your materials, and you have some options. Sorry, not materials. Where was it now? Miscellaneous, and then you have curve atlas and curve. So the first thing we want to create is the curve atlas, and that's what we've got over there. We can actually drag this over like that, and now we can also right click, go again to miscellaneous, and select curve, and it will ask us what type of curve, and we can select the curve linear color and press select. Now this creates the curve. Now, if you drop this curve over here, that's fine, but it actually will not work because you need to link this curve to this atlas. So if you double click the atlas, it will bring up a new window, and you can press this plus button over here, and then you can drop the curve like that. And now you're ready to go with both of these in place. If we, you can actually see how the black body is being affected by this. If we have the curve now on, we can start playing around with some of the colors. So let me just do something like that. Okay, so normally to move them out of the way from there, what you want to do is just bring the slider over like that a bit, and this separates them. You can take the blue, the green, and the red like that, and then you can start sort of moving them about in whatever sort of fashion you'd like. Now it's important that you sort of create a tint that best works for you, and this is just something that you'll have to play around in order to get different various effects. And based on what you're doing, the scene changes. So let's just try and make like a red one. And in the end, this is the kind of the black body that I've went with. I'm quite happy with what it looks like. And one thing to note in here is that I can actually go and, you know, reduce the strength of that. I can even look at reducing the multiplier for, you know, for the density, or I can even increase it. Thus increasing it, any value of that multiplication will just become greater. So, you know, you can actually go and just have it very light or stronger, or, you know, thicker and so on. So there's a lot of settings in here that can be done with this, and this looks really good. So now let's bring the other thing that we want, you know, what we've actually exported. So this is quite simple, because if you have the VDB source wherever you've exported it, which is for me is in this folder, if you drag the first frame, which is frame 0, if you have the plugin installed, you know, it will ask you. Now the thing is, you want to bring these one at a time. If you do density and flames, chances are it won't actually bring both. It will just bring one anyway. And I would use an FP4 on this for performance reasons. And it's asking you what sort of frame, what's the first frame, what's the last frame. So we're going to use that. Just going to import it. And once that's done, you can see it over here. And now we can also drag and drop again to be able to this time get our flames. And again, FP4 should be fine, and import. So once that's sort of done, we can now play with it. Now the first one thing that I would recommend is that you actually take the effect off of here. And yeah, see, this is what happens. I've just got an error because I've actually done this without stopping the animation. So that's very, you know, you've definitely got to make sure that you don't do that. So here we have an interesting turn of events. Remember when I told you guys not to import the temperature? And for this particular asset, actually, this has been a sort of a mistake. And the reason for that is because, let me just drag in the density over here. And I'm also going to put the flames. And I am also going to open the level sequence, which I'm going to drag around here, just because we need to have that sort of, you know, that sort of animation. So I'm just going to delete these, and the frame rate will be between 0 to 0255, because that's what I've exported that VDB at, this particular one that we did with the flames. I'm just going to drag this in here and add the VDB sequence, and just going to put it over like that. Okay, and now I'm going to press play. And what you're noticing while this is playing, there's nothing is displaying. And that's because over in here, we have added density, and I will show you this in just 1 second. If we stop the animation, if we try to import this file again, what you'll notice is that in where it says density and flames, density actually has 0. There is nothing that's been exported out of the VDB sequence that has any information for the density, but it has information for flames, which is a good thing because we can actually use flames as density. But I believe for this particular one, we should have gotten flames plus temperature and no density. So, that's an interesting sort of lesson right there. So let's add the flames instead. I'm just going to select flames and drop it there. And I'm also going to drop flames into the temperature. Actually, just leave it there for now. And now when we play the sort of the animation of this in our VDB sequence, I'm just clicking play now. You can now see the animation playing over here, right? And we can actually go and increase our density to maybe like 100, and you can see the animation playing as this is sort of going on. But one thing that we're noticing, there are no flames in there, and we should already see some effects from here, but we haven't yet set it. So I'm just gonna add the temperature, and now you can see that. And if we take the step size to 1, we can see it even better. So that's looking quite nice. Now, if we could remove the density entirely if we wanted to, but instead of doing that, we'll just play around with the black body. So I'm just going to I'm going to enable the trilinear interpolation. Going to leave it to like 100. Yeah, 100 should be fine. Now, if we go to the black body, we can actually set a color maybe of like an orange, and then we can look at increasing that intensity, or maybe do like 50, or I don't know, 25 maybe. We should also be able to add some emissive, again, kind of the same orangey color like that in there. And that's it. And now we also have some smoke in there. If you don't want any smoke, you just need to disable the density entirely, and then you have no smoke. But don't, if you do this, that won't be fine. You have to actually remove the density instead of removing it from here. We can play around with the, the albedo of it as well if we want. But 0.8 generally works quite fine. That's why it's also a default value. We can play around with the emissive and, make it to be a lot more emissive if we really want to. So that should give it quite of an and then we can play with a black body, try and get that. But normally you don't want, you want to like keep emissive to maybe like a 1 and black body to like 25, and that looks okay-ish. Again, more things can be done. We can, increase our temperature, which just takes over even more. Generally, you probably don't even need the emissive strength at that point. But emissive will help you in dark rooms where you want to light up the scene more. So you can do that as well. Yeah, something like that. And if you want the animation to play faster, you can always right-click the animation in the sequence in here. So we can go properties and do like a 0 point. Well, actually, we can want to play it maybe 4 times faster. Then we just have to make sure that the sequence is set like that. But if you don't want to play around with this particular, sequence, all you really need to do is with it selected, you can go down here and say, playback animation of, let's say, 2, and then we press play, and we should be able to see the animation. Actually, I think I might need to disable it from a sequence before I sort of do that. Yeah, there we go. So with it disabled from the sequence, we can actually play it in real time in here as well, which is really neat. And again, this is affected by where our light is in the scene, or at least it should be. I'm not really, I can see the effect, but only a bit, and that's because we have the black body intensity that's so high, and this is fire, so we will be differently affected as opposed to, just smoke and stuff. And that's kind of how you can get an effect in Unreal Engine as a VDB. I hope that's useful enough information. But I'm really happy that you guys have spent the time to watch this and understand how we do it, how we create effects. Well, not really how to create them. That's for another future video, but I'm sure you guys can give it a go on Embergen and just get your own effects done and test it out. But now you've learned how to put them into Unreal Engine, how to get some really nice effects in there as well, and get it running. So yeah, please feel free to check it out yourselves and leave a comment in the section below with your recommendations of what we can do, or what other things I can look at in the future in relation to VDBs. I am planning on launching my own sort of collection, so stay tuned for that. But yeah, thank you for the Patreons, thank you for the Creo members. You guys make all these videos possible. Really appreciate the support, and I'll see you guys in the next tutorial. Keep on creating.